Good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Manifesting with Meg. This is episode 85, Conversations with Extraordinary People. And I am so excited to welcome Laila Tarraf. She is my 85th episode, and this is the second one in January. And I'm so excited that the theme tonight is you are exactly where you are meant to be. And I think I need this message more than anyone. So I have to I've been trying to get my mind around the let it go, surrender to the possibility of whatever's coming, do what you can, but then be still. So I'm so excited to talk to you tonight, Laila, about all of this. But before we go on, I want to remind everyone that this is a show about transformation, dreams, inspiration, true happiness, and discovering bliss. You're just a conversation away from an extraordinary time to wake up to the universe, followed and packed with possibility. Hello, Jessica. Hello, Suzanne. And hello, Leslie. They're all here to support you, Laila. And
so nice.
One of my favorite things is that this show is based upon my book. It is The Magical Guide to Bliss. And I can't tell you how wonderful it has been to share this with the world, and also to share this with all of those on the podcast and the YouTube channel and Facebook Live. Tonight, like I said, you are exactly where you're meant to be. And we always get intentional. So set your intention, Laila. Pick a number, 3 through 397. You all know the drill. And without further ado, let's take this journey to bliss with Laila. So let me introduce you to this amazing, amazing woman. She is a senior human resource executive with over 25 years of professional experience. She has graduated from with her MBA from the Haas School of Business at the University of California at Berkeley. So she's no weak link here. This is a heavy hitter. And she became one of the founding members or team members at Walmart.com. She then served as the chief people officer at Peet's Coffee and Tea. So if anyone's out there who loves coffee or tea, this lady has a lot to do with getting it out into the world. So it is the iconic Bay Area premium coffee company. Currently, she is the chief people officer at Allbirds, a sustainable footwear and apparel brand. She's also a trusted advisor to entrepreneurs and investors, and is a guest lecturer at Berkeley Law School. She's got so many professional achievements and personal accomplishments over the years. But one of my favorite, and I think a lot of all of you out there who is a part of our author cohort know her because of her debut book, Strong Like Water. And she did a great job depicting her journey and the hard-won insights in that book. And I do encourage all of you to go out and purchase it after. You will want to, because you'd want to read more of this interview. Certainly, the book itself is life-changing, and you can only imagine what she's gone through, but you'll have to hear more. She is Lebanese American, and she's an avid traveler and world explorer. I always love that. Most of all, she's a proud mom to her teenage daughter, Nadia, and she loves her 8-pound Yorkie, Max. Like I said, she's a She Writes Press author. We are so lucky to have you here, Laila. Did I miss anything? Please share.
No, I think you got it all. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait.
God. So Louis says Max. He likes the idea of your Yorkie for sure. Thank you guys so much. And they all can't wait to read your book. I will say this. Wow, what an incredible debut. What an incredible life story. I'm extremely moved by what you wrote. I find it so synchronistic that we come here tonight celebrating on January 24th. This theme, you're exactly where you're meant to be, especially in light of the fact that everyone is coming to the end of January. It might not have been the January you all intended. However, we're all going to finish strong, certainly. And it feels a lot to me like the Serenity Prayer, do what you can with control, and then others just accept and let go what you can't. So the quote tonight is from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She's one of my favorites. I did rely on her so much when I was going through the grieving process initially. And her quote is, "There are no mistakes, no coincidences. All events are blessings given to us to learn from." you know, so difficult sometimes to swallow that pill, but yet so profound if you listen to those words. And the magical key to bliss is the list, the challenges you've had and the blessings you've received from those challenges. Now, nobody wants to do that, but yet when we all look at it at the end on the other side is certainly a lot of blessings that come from, you know, going through the journey and coming out the other side. So I want to offer everyone the opportunity to start from there, is to see all your challenges and the silver linings from those. You are certainly highly professional, successful, and you face some pretty big challenges as well in your life. What are your thoughts on this? And I'm just so excited to have you. I'm looking forward to this time. I have to tell you, I'm really excited to have you on this interview tonight, Laila.
Oh, thank you so much, Meg. I mean, it's just a little crazy that this is the quote for the evening. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was someone I listened to a lot and read after my husband passed. I mean, I think, you know, the older you get, you live long enough and you keep trying to get better, and you get better at your craft, so you achieve some success, but then life throws you, you know, some curveballs, or maybe they're fastballs. Uh, so, I mean, for, you know, it could be a personal health scare, or losing a loved one, or a global pandemic. And for me, I really didn't have anything in my life that I, you know, couldn't control, because I was a fixer and a controller. And I think the universe just thought, oh my gosh, she's a tough one. And I think they had to give me 3 in a row for me to see the gifts in those losses. And I won't lie, the last couple of years have been very heavy. And there's been a lot of days where I've just had to say, just get through today. But I think if I hadn't experienced what I did 10 years ago, I don't know that I could have made it through. And so I'm already seeing the gifts, the resilience. I'm just a much more balanced individual, more self-aware. I'm more gentle with myself. I love the saying, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Do you
Love
know
that.
that quote?
Yes, I love that.
And like the double arrow, like you'll get one arrow, right? Your life will throw you some stuff, but then the second arrow, that's your choice. Like how long you decide to suffer, that's kind of up to you. And I really believe in that, right? It's like, okay, let's grieve our loss, you know, figure out the learning from it, and then be grateful for that and move on. I make it sound easy, but you know, that is kind of our journey here in life, isn't it?
I have to say, it's interesting what you said to that point. I love that quote. Definitely very profound. We at one point, okay, the initial shock is like, you have to pull yourself
Right.
back off the floor. But then after that, you're like, okay, I get a choice here. I get to choose to continue the drama of what I experienced, or, you know, figure out a way to move forward in a different manner using what I've learned. I laughed. I have to share this with you because it keeps coming up. There's a meme I saw. It's this lady out like with her robe on, like this is 2 years into the pandemic, right? Screaming up to like saying, this is manifesting on top. And she's screaming to the universe, okay, apparently my writing it down didn't work. And apparently my like vision board didn't work. So I am telling you, tell universe, this is what I want. So cut the other crap. Let's focus on this now. She goes, that's manifesting. And I was laughing because I was like, oh, I could see at a certain point in time that would be me standing out there. I don't know, like literally that little balance, but tell me where you are on your life path right now. And just after publishing Strong Like Water, maybe a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you are, manifested this incredible part of your life that's only a few people get to say, I published an amazing book like you have.
Yeah, it's crazy. Uh, I mean, I um I suffered these 3 losses. I was the chief people officer at Peet's Coffee. It was really my first executive role. I was learning how to be a leader. I was a new mom. My daughter was 3 years old, and the next 4 or 5 years I ended up losing my husband, my father, and then my mom. And so those losses really ended up being the catalyst for a lot of personal growth. And as I said, up until that point, I kind of had been moving along and everything was fine. And when I suffered those losses, I realized that it was a moment for me to get real. I'd always held myself in a very, very optimistic, very sunny, and reframing to the positive. You're just not looking at it the right way. And those are great qualities. I don't want to put them down, but they became coping mechanisms that I pushed so far that I really had lost touch with who I was and how I felt about anything, because everything had to have this kind of shiny veneer. And at that point I realized, okay, I have to get real, if not for myself, then to be able to help my daughter
Yeah.
uh, grieve in a healthy way. Uh, and and then I started to write. I like you. I started to have insights around how I had been holding myself and the stories that I had told myself. And I was like, oh, maybe that's not true. Maybe I'm not the hero. Maybe I don't have to save everybody to be loved. Maybe, and I started to write these insights down so I wouldn't forget them, because I wanted to share them with my daughter when she got older. And then as I started sharing my insights with friends, every time they would say, oh, yeah, I do that too. Oh, yeah, me too. And then I started realizing, wait, I'm not the only one. And I realized we all do some version of protecting and distorting and contorting ourselves from to stay away from what we don't want to deal with.
Right.
And I thought, if I could write my story down and it can resonate with someone who might be cut from the same cloth as me, who might have had early childhood experiences as me, um, as we were saying, wouldn't that be so cool if I could just help one person? I have to say, it was my birthday, January 11th. I got an email from a young mother in Uganda. And I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, they're going to ask me for money. No, it was a real email. This woman discovered my book somehow. She read it. She's a mother of four. She's an executive director of Hunger Project. And she said, I was that person in my family. I was the fixer and the hero, and I resented my family and I didn't know why. And your book just sort of made me realize like who I was and why I held that persona and why I can let it go. And I thought, look at this, half a world away.
Amazing.
And I was able to light a path, a light on her path, so that, she could make these insights sooner. So anyway, that's kind of why I wrote the book.
That is quite a sign coming from Uganda, all the way from Uganda on your birthday. And did she, I mean, I know in the book it says that January 11th is your birthday, but did she know that when she wrote to you that she was
I
writing?
don't She didn't mention it.
No,
She
that's
didn't and now we're
amazing.
kind of pen pals. I'm like, "Oh, well, you should check this out. Well, have you heard about the drama triangle?" And she's taking it all in. So
That's
I
amazing.
just like the connection that we have with everybody, but especially as women. I just think, right, the Dalai Lama said the future of the world's in the hands of Western women.
Yes.
He said that a long time ago, and I think that is more true today than it ever has been.
That's amazing. You know, I do love the name Strong Like Water. And I know that, a lot of people may be curious as to why you chose that title to highlight your book. And the cover is gorgeous. You guys can see it behind me. I'll put it up at the end so
Oh.
you can. It's beautiful. It's this beautiful white letters against the ocean, it feels like. So tell me a little bit about how you came up with that title.
I really struggled to find the right title for the book. And she writes Pratt Sisters. Brooke was like, Layla, you have got to pick a title. Uh, and I wanted something that captured the duality of being a single mom, a nurturer, and a female business leader, someone who is more directive. And I was looking for something that captured the strength and the tenderness I was trying to live into.
Mhm.
And so I chose the title Strong Like Water because that is one of Lao Tzu's
Mm.
verses in the Tao Te Ching. It's verse 78, and it's called Be Like Water. And and in it, he says that water is actually very powerful, but in a gentle way. And
Mm.
he says something like, water is fluid, soft, and yielding, but water will wear away rock, which is rigid and cannot yield.
Oh,
And
wow.
so he says, as a rule, whatever is fluid, soft, and yielding will overcome whatever is rigid and hard.
Oh, I love
And so
that.
in this way, what is soft is strong. And all his verses are about this, the paradox of life, that it's never either or, it's and.
I love it.
And that just really resonated with me. I thought that was perfect.
Wow, those words just resonated with me. It's never either or in life, it's and. And Suzanne saying she loves the background of the title too. And I did too. I really did appreciate that. It did like totally intrigue me as to what this was about, because I had no idea. I know it's called How I Found the Courage to Lead with Love in Business and in Life. I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I was reading it. I would love for you to share some of the key lessons that you took away, not what you want people to take away, but that you took away from the book,
Mm,
because I think that, if you learn them, they'll definitely come out like strong with others for sure. If your intentions were that, then for sure it's going to be very clear on the other end.
yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think there are a few. I think the first one we've been talking about, which is that times of adversity in your life really provide opportunities for growth if you allow yourself to be present and feel what's coming up. And that's the big if, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that was the biggest one for me because I had numbed myself out for about 40 years. So it took a lot I was a very slow learner. Just took a lot to break that down. And then allowing yourself, sorry, did you say something?
No, no, this is great. I'm listening. I'm just
Uh,
like, oh, like, come on. I'm like, I know she's going to say something that I need right now. So I'm listening. I'm just completely enthralled with you right
well, if you guys know the Enneagram, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, and 7s will do anything to stay away from their pain. So a big lesson for me was if you allow yourself to feel the pain associated with loss, rather than it making you weak, it actually makes you more resilient and stronger. I mean, I say that now and I'm like, duh, but
now.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
um, and I think on the business side, I think what I learned was for me, I have never had a hard time moving into my masculine. Like I can run with the guys, and when I'm at work, if you push on me, I'm going to push back on you. That's just my personality.
Yeah.
And so what I learned was that for me, it was easy to adopt the more sort of patriarchal and masculine examples of power, strength, and aggression, and drive for results. And in doing that, I lost touch with some of my more feminine qualities, which were just as powerful,
Yeah.
but I leaned too far into the power and the strength, and I lost touch with more of the nurturing and the compassion, which could be every bit as powerful.
Yeah.
And again, what I learned was it's how you combine these skillfully for each one of us, like depending on our own sort of alchemy and leadership mojo, right? And that has been, what's really cool about that is having led now through a global pandemic over the last 2.5 years. Again, I couldn't have done that if I hadn't gone through my path because I had to drive for high performance and hire great people and hold them accountable. And I had to be really empathetic to what was happening and create an environment that, promoted health and safety and make decisions around, COVID and return to work and hybrid and remote and working parents. And it was a lot. And I think if I hadn't developed my toolkit in that way, I don't think I would have been up for the job.
I love that you
So yeah.
I love you wrote lead with love. Now, it's just interesting because I'm wondering, I left the government for over 4 years ago now, and I will say that it was not likely people were leading with love, especially at the time when I left. I'm wondering, in the last 4 years, do you find that that is something that's more, present, using the same word that you had, it's more present now than it was before because of what we all just went through for the last 2 years?
I I absolutely do. When I was at Pete's, I wanted we were redoing our values, and I wanted to call it for the love of Pete's. Everyone was like, "We can't use the word love in business." I'm like, but if anybody who drinks Pete's or who knows Pete's, the connection is so deep. It is love, but I was overruled.
Yeah.
And now at Allbirds, 7 years later, I use love all the time. I started a speaker series that I call the Leading with Love speaker series,
Mhm.
and if you just Google sort of compassionate leadership or empathetic leadership, that term has really come up in the last few years because employees are struggling. People who, I mean, we've all had to figure out this new way of working. And if you don't have a head of people who understands that and can be compassionate and empathetic and still be principled and drive for results, it's both.
Right.
That's what makes it hard. But I think people are much more open to that. And what I love is it's being led by the younger generation. It's being led by the millennials and Gen Z, which is beautiful.
And I think that, I feel very hopeful as you're saying this because I think that, for such a long time, the experience was probably more in line with, the HBO show Succession, than, this like, I don't know.
Logan Roy.
Yeah, exactly. It was like,
Yeah.
how is it
Yeah.
possible that we can leave the humanity out of the workplace? I don't think that's sustainable, and it's not. I think that's why there's like this great recession now, or like not recession, but great resignation now, where people are streaming out to find more passion and purpose. And I know because you have been at the helm of leadership for so long, and that fact is that your voice becomes a voice many look to, that maybe it's really kind of optimistic, or even makes me feel really good that this is what's coming out. And I love how you say that you used your beautiful insights, because here's one of them, right,
Mm.
that you had spoken to. You don't need to save everyone to be loved. What does this mean to you? What does this speak? How does this speak to you?
Well, I mean, for me, the persona that I took on, and the narrative that I developed for myself was, if I'm able to help you, if I'm able to save you, rescue you, fix you, be of service in some way, then I'm worthy of love.
Mm,
And we all have different versions of these things. And for me, if you read my book, the scene opens up. My parents had a very challenging relationship, so very quickly I realized, well, I need to be the grown up here. Like, and I was the eldest of three, and I just took on that role very early. And I I didn't realize that this persona wasn't really me, that I deserve love and I am worthy of love just because I'm here, just because. And we, again, we all have some version of that, but that was the one that I had held on to for a long time, and I still do. And I have to remind myself, no, let go. You don't have to fix that.
I love
And
that.
and also what it means is that what I really learned is if you try to fix something for someone, you're actually robbing them of
Mm,
the opportunity to do it themselves too.
yeah.
So,
I do believe that the permission to just love yourself because you exist is a great way to begin every day, instead of having to show up and, like, having to show out for people. And then you do you're
yeah.
the pat on the head, and you're good now, move along. I love this because, I think it's so cool to hear how people react to you. And I'm going to read this because I loved what it said. Layla was particularly incredible to hear from. She had such an easy way of communicating with the group. I've attended several women's leadership conferences, and it was one of the few times I actually felt like I took something meaningful away to really think about. Everyone was wonderful, but she said what she said resonated with me. Now, that must be so fulfilling when you come away from something that you put together, somehow a speech that you have, and people actually resonate with you. Tell me a little bit about this.
That was amazing. That was the first keynote I had done. It was to over 300 people, mostly women, at my alma mater at Berkeley, and it was for the annual Women in Leadership Conference. And I did a presentation about I called it the stories that save us until they hold us back.
Oh, that's so
And
interesting.
yeah, and because we're all living inside of the story, and the point is we need to make it visible and ask ourselves, is it true? And I talked about the self-fulfilling prophecy, how you only see what your story tells, right? And so it reinforces it, and there has to be an intervention to really shake your core belief.
Yeah.
And that was my speech. And at the end, these are young women, and a lot of female MBAs, which I was 20 years ago. And I made a joke and I said, I got to business school and I thought, yes, these are my people. It's like, keep the emotions in the background and let's just lead with our head and let's go. and they're all like, oh yeah, I'm like kind of like that.
Yeah.
And it was just so nice for them. The comments that really resonated with me was, you can be human and feminine and loving and a person with feelings, and you can be in business. Like, the two are not mutually exclusive. And I think even 20 years ago, I remember a woman said to me at Peet's, I broke myself from saying I feel. I had to say I think something, because if I said I feel, she thought it made her seem weak.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? It's interesting because it's what the game is, what we've known the game to be, as far as, who's in the room, what your voice means by virtue of what gender you show up as, and what's acceptable and what's, literally something that, is, like I said, acceptable. And the reality is that even coming from where I was, especially when losing my mother and having that experience of just spiraling out of control and having to keep it together in court, and at the same time I'm falling apart inside, it was such a misalignment that, and I wasn't given the opportunity to actually heal. I think coming from an impression where you have someone at the helm who has compassion and has empathy and understands that this is a part of life and everybody gets through it, right? At the same time, oh my God, we need more of that. We need more of that, because people are going to burn out and people are going to lose people that they love, and
Yeah.
it's not sustainable. And I will say, this is another, wonderful. I love having your cover up there, but it's a great depiction. It's a great saying with regard to your book. You've written a beautiful, sometimes tragic, ultimately compelling call to the kind of leadership that sustains yourself as well as others. That's Peggy Northrup, CEO of Watermark, former editor-in-chief of Sunset, Reader's Digest, and more. I mean, that's someone who's in the room. She's recognizing that the kind of leadership that you're putting out there is something that we need, and this is the time for it. Tell me a little bit more about this, and maybe what your future vision is, at this kind of crossroads in your life.
So I just announced that I'll be leaving Allbirds literally last Friday, to go off on my own. And I think the future is leadership has to include greater empathy and vulnerability. The Allbirds is a very young company compared to the other companies that I've worked at, and millennials and Gen Z, they will accept nothing less, and so they're forcing it to happen. The challenge, again, as I said, is true strength. There is softness in strength and strength in softness, and the challenge for us now is not to go one extreme or the other. And so, I've been in organizations where it's sharp elbowed, right? And we kind
Yeah.
of shove and get ahead, and there's not a lot of compassion. But then I've also been in other organizations where we love each other and everything's great and nothing gets done,
Yeah.
right? And so it's finding I'm always drawing these two intersecting circles, and one is sort of business and one is people, or one is the head and one is the heart, and
Yeah.
one, or yin and yang, and it's always at the inner two that you need to navigate back and forth, and that's the sweet spot.
Love it.
And I think that's what leaders are wrestling with today.
I think that's really important that you're at least, identifying what it is that seems to be what we quote unquote a problem, one way or the other. And I think that really that is kind of the problem we're having as a country, extremes, like extremes.
Very polarized.
Yes, very polarized, and there's extremes. So when you have extremes, then they lose the sane voice, the balanced
Yes.
voice in the middle. And it's not that, someone told me long ago that change doesn't happen like from one day to the next. It's like a slow moving ship, right? A big
Yeah.
tanker. It moves, but there's change. You just can't see it until you get distance and you can see
Yeah.
the perspective. That's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad, because what happens is you don't tip the boat over, and a lot of people die and sinking in the water, because of you're trying to force something. And the beautiful thing, what you just said, is understanding the whole picture because of your experience that you have had, and knowing full well that the millennials and the Gen Zs are not going to tolerate anything less. But there's a lot of pride that you have if you show up doing a job well done, getting things done too. So there can be a marriage of both in a balanced state. And I love this, because these pictures are awesome of you. I love your insights. Ultimately, I was able to let go of the false narrative that had kept me emotionally isolated my whole life. And I think when you heal yourself, you're able to be a part of the solution outside yourself. Tell me what
Hmm.
this means to you.
Hmm. Exactly what you just said. I mean, there's an archetype called the wounded healer, right? And I think for those of us who have healed ourselves, it frees us, right? It opens our hearts so we can connect with others. If you don't do the work, whatever that is for you, and the work is, it's cerebral, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's somatic,
Yeah.
it's holistic, and we can come at it in different ways. But if we don't heal our heart, whatever that childhood wound was for us, we're not going to be emotionally available. And if you're not emotionally available, um, then you can't connect. That's where you connect from.
Yeah.
Then the relationships, by definition, will be more transactional, and can't be deeper. It's interesting now because there's a lot of conversation at companies about diversity and inclusion and culture and belonging, and 100% I agree with all those things. But to what you were saying earlier, there isn't a full understanding of what that requires, right? It requires the company to create the conditions for inclusivity and connection and belonging, but it also requires individuals to have done the work to be emotionally available so that they can sync up and connect too.
Right. No, I love that. I love that. And let me ask you, I'm curious with regard to this, especially you in the professional world, and being the chief people officer of Peet's and Allbirds, and would you have felt, well, this is actually, let me go back. How vulnerable did it feel for you to publish this book while in those roles?
Sorry. Um, I have to say that when my book came out, or the night before it came out, I thought, "Oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? I want to take it back." I really had a moment of panic, and then one of my CEOs, Tim Brown, I told them when they hired me that I had written a book and that I needed some time when it came out. And I gave them a copy of the book beforehand. They never said anything about it. And the week of my book launch, Tim said to me in front of the whole company, at a company meeting, he said, Laila, you wrote a book. I'm like, I know. He goes, like a real book. He said, this is a guy who was a professional soccer player, just sort of like a man's man. He goes, you are so brave. He goes, I could never do that. It meant so much to me that he said that.
Yeah.
He said it was so brave, so courageous.
Wow. Well, it's true. I think that, there's so many books out there. Yes. The people have published so many books, but when you write a memoir, like you lead with love. You lead with love by sharing your story with the world. And I can definitely say that moment in time where you're like, oh, I didn't do that. I got to take it back now. It is definitely acknowledgement of the fact that you really did get vulnerable with your story, which is amazing and so profound and well done. I'm glad that your CEO actually saw that. And back to the book itself, it's a humanizing narrative arc will appeal to business executives and many other readers, a readable and affecting account about learning new heartfelt ways to manage people. The fact that your boss came out and said bravo to you, clearly understanding what it is that you set out to do is quite amazing. So how has that journey been so far? It's not a year old yet, right? You're still a baby in the publishing process.
Yes, and I think, as most authors know, after those first 3 or 4 months, it's so heavy. I mean, it's been amazing. I would say the greatest gift in all of this is every time someone says, "I read your book," I have a moment of, what did you think? Do you like it? Do you like me? And
Yeah.
especially since mine was so vulnerable, like, are you going to judge me because I just led with all my broken bits? And every time whether it's someone I know or I've known for a long time or I just met, we are able to drop into a much more intimate
Amazing.
conversation because I don't lead with vulnerability even today. And that book is sort of my calling card. Like, look how imperfect. And so it actually helps because when people meet me, they're like, well, we know she's really not that together because we've read this. And I think that's helpful. It helps me to lead with more vulnerability.
It's funny because when I published my book too, I was just like, you know what? They know all my crap. They can't do anything to me now. It's all out there. It's not like I've got any secrets to hide.
That's awesome.
What are you
Exactly. What are you going to do now? I already shot myself. You can shoot me.
I was just like,
I love that.
Yeah, you were like, all right, it's in there. Okay, I told the whole world. And like Liani's saying, yes, she loves to hear what readers think, and it's so hard to put yourself out there. So it's definitely commendable when you do. And here's a picture of your beautiful daughter and you. And you saying, I was proud of being able to provide a safe space for my daughter to process her feelings, and I was grateful that she had become my teacher to do the same. I saw this and I was like, oh my God, Tier, how beautiful. The gift that you gave your child by virtue of you making the decision to heal yourself is just without words, right? Without words, and beautiful. Tell me how you tell me in your own words. I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciated reading that
Thank
myself.
you. Well, I mean, my mother, whom I loved, wasn't there for me, right? Emotionally, she didn't have the capacity. So that's part of my childhood wound. So for me to be able to be that for my daughter in a way is what has healed me as well.
Yeah, amazing.
So yeah, it's full circle.
And how does she see your path now? Like, how has she responded to you, bringing this kind of heartfelt? Do you see her emulating the business Laila, or is she the heartfelt Laila, or is she next to both?
Sorry. She's she's very spirited, but she's not businessy at all. She's more of a social justice warrior. She loves philosophy and political science. Sorry, I'm coughing. Um, but she speaks her mind. She has courage. I think she's very emotionally intelligent. She is a teenager, so we have our moments. Let's not go crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say she's a
We
healthy
get through them
teenager.
pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Right. We need to do that to separate.
yeah,
But we are able to have, real conversations.
yeah. That's amazing. You were talking before about archetypes, and I wanted to ask. So you've delved into the archetype. Clearly, the wounded warrior. You're speaking to that. I loved studying Carolyn Myss, and the different kind of mystical archetypes that you. And I find it's very interesting, especially for writers, to understand that, like, the different characters on the hero's journey, which everything is a hero's journey, and who shows up,
Everything.
and everything is. I the best movies and the best books always have that whole arc, right? The follow the arc.
That's right.
And we all come back to the beginning, starting all over again, knowing now what we didn't know before, yet seeing with new eyes. So now it is what. So you published your book when again? What month in
April.
That was April.
April.
So in April 2021, did you ever imagine you would be where you are now? And what archetype would you consider yourself embodying at this point in your journey?
My gosh, that's such a great question. I think this last year tested my ability to be balanced. And and I wasn't always balanced. I did freak out, and I did sort of, devolve, and I had these moments, but the difference is I didn't used to allow myself to have those ranges. I would stay like this because I was numbed out.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize was when you reconnect with your emotions, you feel them. and so, then I had to, I'm like, oh, now I've really got to lean into emotional regulation, because I can't just have a freak out at work. So my learning this last year is like, okay, awesome. I'm more in touch with my emotions. I'm able to be moved a lot more, connect more easily. And when I have a freak out or I get triggered, I got to go and like do some deep breath and, just take some time. So that's been a big learning.
You've embarked on a spiritual journey. You've said it in your book that is something that you've welcomed into your life, the whole in spiritu part of your existence here, which I think, we were talking about the outset, but our journeys are at our hearts, like at our core. There's so much more than meets the eye, than what we see. And from what you've spoken to in your book, and are you okay? I was like, it's the throat chakra. It's your throat chakra is loosening up. So now you're gonna tell your total truth in front of everyone, and you're just like not quite ready. It's like, it's so
Oh my
funny.
God, I wonder if that is the throat chakra. You're right.
I always, when I have this, I'm like, oh Jesus, I lose my voice. I'm like, because I'm totally terrified of sharing my truth, and it's totally psychosomatic, and it's gone, and I'm like, okay, I can't say anything now. My body's protecting me, from whatever I'm trying or I'm fearful of. Not that I'm saying that that's you. You might just have a tickle in your throat, but I'm saying that that's the mystical, the spiritual component that I've contemplated. That I contemplate. Anyway, so back to where you are. This shiny new year. What vision do you have as you now just took a new turn on your path, and how exciting for you?
I actually did a vision board this year. I hadn't done one in the last 3 years. My joke was, look what happened when I didn't do a vision board, because the last one was 2019.
Oh, how funny.
I mean, it's a big year for me. I'm stepping down from a full-time job, so that's scary, right? Because nobody supports me. It's just me. And so I'm dealing with, scarcity and I don't have enough, or what if? And so, and I know that's just a story, but those are some of the fears that I
Yeah.
have. And my daughter is graduating from high school, and so it's been just her and me for the last 14 years. And while I've dated, there hasn't been anyone special. So now it's like I've got to open up my heart. I don't have to, but I want to open up my heart to love and saying goodbye to my daughter. And so that's a big change. And as I told you earlier, I really want to reconnect with my creativity. That speaks to me, whether it's writing another book,
I love it.
traveling, living abroad. Now I think I might walk the Camino. I swear. I think that's what's coming out of this for me. I
I
think
think
I'm going to walk the Camino this summer. Wouldn't that be perfect?
I think that would be perfect. Oh my God, you'll take a picture and you'll wave to me because I will happily cheer you on from where I am. I don't think I'll ever do that again. It's so funny. It's like it was one of those moments in life that I wanted to see what I'm made of and to see where I was going and get my message. And I love when people go and try to get outside their comfort zone. For some reason, I don't think this is outside your comfort zone. It seems like it might be just in line with what you might need. And even Leonie's saying, transition is hard. We're all been there. You put yourself out there. It's that fear of, the parachute not opening up and you're just like free falling down to nothing. But the reality at the end of the day is what regret you would have if you didn't try and bet on yourself,
I
right?
know.
I mean, what if you
I
didn't put
know.
your book out there? I mean, I wouldn't have met you and a whole cohort of women and so many new faces. And I think what is beautiful about what's happening now, hopefully as Omicron passes, is that the networking component, the people component. I'm praying because there's this longing for belonging where people want to be with people again.
Yes.
And it's going to take a little bit of movement to get them out of this routine of being stuck at home and comfortable there. And unfortunately even extroverts are experiencing that because perhaps it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you would regret not doing that. And let me turn the question to you. The pandemic did a lot. I mean, there are some silver linings. You are where you're meant to be. Going back to that theme today, we're supposed to be on this call tonight on Zoom, sharing with whoever is listening. What is it that you might want to share for somebody who's listening, having come out of your story and leadership roles that are really powerful because you were able to navigate companies to higher success, and then coming back to the needs of being with your daughter now as she's turning a corner in her life too.
I think some of the big lessons for me moving forward is we have to be flexible. Like I think everyone's situations are so different at work, at home.
Yeah.
There is no more one size fits all. Like even now, like could you imagine getting up every day, like Monday through Friday, and getting ready and putting makeup on and getting in your car and commuting? Doesn't that just seem like a relic of like 1990 or something already? I don't think anyone's ever going to do that again.
Oh my God.
And so I think the world has blown open and remote work is here to stay. And so I think companies and people have to get used to being more flexible um, and dynamic because I think I heard a CEO say it feels like we're playing 3D chess now, where things are just flying at you, and even work 10 years ago feels like it was 1950 Pleasantville to me because everything now is so much more complicated.
Yeah.
And I think that forces us to reground in ourselves, right? Because that's the only thing that we can anchor in. And I believe that the divine is within us. We just have to reconnect with our essence.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I'm hoping that's what happens.
So what was your intention for this evening? And then tell us the page number of Magical Guide to Bliss that you picked tonight.
So my intention was to really tap into my creativity. I really feel like that's been very close, and I just wanted to come out now that I'm stepping down from sort of this big leadership role. And the page I picked was, or the number I picked was 151.
So tell us what that says.
Well, crazily enough, um, page 151 says, "A life led in creative abundance." And the quote is by Randy Pausch, the author of The Last Lectures. I read that book and he's amazing.
Yes.
And he says, do you want me to read it?
Read whatever speaks to you that you want to share with the audience.
Well, what I loved was, where is it here? It says, the concept of living in a purposeful life empowered by consciousness through which we act rather than be acted on is freeing to us. We are liberated by ideas that will allow for more love, hope, joy, and abundance. What karma we build in this life will lay the path for our divine destiny. I mean,
It's very
that's kind
exciting.
of what I want.
I think it's kind of
nicely
exciting.
done.
You know, I do. I think it's very exciting when you're looking down the road to your next great adventure, or whatever that is. And you know, and I will say, you know, January was not what I thought it was going to be. Certainly not at home. It was kind of a challenge. And you know, I will say this. I believe that we do move on to the next stage after the mystery is come to completion. There's closure in what we have. And I find I'm a big puzzle or mystery girl. You know, you got to solve the riddle before the door opens so you can walk through it and get the next, you know, prize. Because I always think that these next levels that we are at in life are a prize for having survived what we have gone through. So it's kind of an exciting way to look at life. Certainly, maybe not necessarily everyone's view, but you know, life experience has shown me that I get to choose to stay in the pain and the suffering, which is optional, or look to the future, which could be bountiful and could be filled with abundance just by virtue of what I intend to look for. So, you know, my vision has always been to engage the extraordinary person in these conversations. And certainly you are extraordinary. I do want to ask you to leave us with two more things. You know, personally, what moves you forward in life? What are those things that you might be able to share, you know, to, you know, inspire anyone who's listening?
I don't know if this is very inspirational. I think what moves me forward is hope. I never lose hope.
It's beautiful.
I'm always curious. I love to learn. Um, if someone says something I disagree with, I try to ask questions to seek to understand. So at the very least, I can better understand the why, even if I'm not going to agree with, you know, what their belief is, and I still hold on to mine. I at least I'm just always looking for what is it that connects us rather than divides us. So what is that? You know, the common humanity,
Yeah.
whether it's music or travel or when we're all just people, and I can usually find it.
Oh, I love that. You know, I read somewhere long ago, if you wait long enough, you'll find something that you have in common with another person that you actually like. I have to add that you actually like. And I think that that keeps us, you know, because we, like you said, there's connection there. We are ultimately all of us connected in this great, beautiful web of humanity. And the way we treat others is mirrored back into ourselves. So I do love that. That is very inspirational. I think hope is definitely a commodity that we all can't take for granted, because how do we keep getting up the next day looking for our something wonderful is about to happen? I think that's so beautiful. I want to show your beautiful book in the stream again. And I want to encourage everyone who's watching or listening to go out and get yourself a copy of Strong Like Water and review it too. I wanted to ask you just one more question with regard to that. And I think maybe it goes along the lines of the best tools and practices that get
Mm.
you to succeed or get your accomplishments met or have your dreams come to realization and fulfillment.
I mean, there's a lot of frameworks that I use in my work and um, helping to reground if I kind of go crazy. So, for example, I mentioned the drama triangle earlier.
Yes, what is that? I don't know
The,
what that
dra-
is.
the drama triangle is when we're not present, when we're triggered, when we're acting out. The drama triangle says that all of us will fall into one of three types of characters:
Huh.
the hero, the villain, or the victim.
Ah, interesting.
And both uh, each of them is falling into that stereotype to for temporary relief of pain. But the key is it's temporary. When you're present, this is so fascinating. When you're present, the hero becomes the coach, the
Ah,
villain becomes the challenger, and the victim becomes the creator. So I was always the hero. And isn't it interesting that I'm now the coach?
oh, that's
I didn't
awesome.
even know that.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting construct. I think Gay Hendricks came up with that. Um, the other construct I use is four ways of being in the world. Do you know that one? To
No,
me, by me, through me. No, it's
no.
how you. So the lowest level of sort of awareness is your perspective is life is happening to me.
Uh-huh.
That you don't have agency. Why is this happening to me? And that that orientation, you can't get out of that until you take responsibility for your actions. So if you're living in to me, things are happening to you. You have no agency. Once you take responsibility, you move to um, by me, and that's when you start realizing that actually you can co-create what shows up for
Oh, I
you
love
in
that.
life, right?
Yeah, I love that.
And then from there, if you surrender your attachment to outcomes, which is very hard to do, you move to through me. So life starts to happen through you. You become the vessel and you're almost dancing with life.
Oh, I love
And then the last one is as me, which I think only monks that meditate 40,000 hours get to go to as me.
that.
But it's interesting to see, your orientation on the world, and I don't know, those sorts of frameworks really help me out.
Oh, I love that. I do think that what you just said was, and I do, it's so interesting. The magical dance of life. It's what, you're dancing with life rather than, against it. And, even I think my
Yeah.
greatest inspiration or ideas come up when I'm dancing with life. And certainly it's more enjoyable. That's for sure. At the end of the day, it's more enjoyable for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do I love that you said all of that. All of that is great. I wanted to, and this is, I think, really important because I'm grateful that you said yes tonight to the interview with me. I really did enjoy your book, and I think it was the vulnerability and the fact that you are in a leadership position and you still chose to put it out there, which I think is important in many respects, to show others that it is okay, actually necessary, and you don't need to hide the shadow, right? The shadow of yourself, but embrace the whole thing so that you can show up as a healed, authentic person rather than a wounded one who, certainly feels like the victimization will get in the way of your joy and your beauty and your bliss. And there's always that hope. So thank you. But I would love a final bit of inspiration from your Strong Like Water, your book that you can share with us tonight, for maybe any, up and coming authors or any up and coming dreamers or any up and coming leaders who may just need to hear what you have to say. So take it away.
oh my goodness. I think just don't give up. Like the idea of writing a book for me, I thought about it and thought about it. And finally, a friend of mine said, "Are you just going to talk about it or are you going to do it?" And it doesn't matter how long it takes, it's the journey. It really, I mean, I know that sounds kind of trite, but it's the learning is in the journey. And you, I mean, all I see a lot of authors here. I know you guys have all felt the same way. It's writing. I just is so beautiful. It's you get to self reflect. You get to put yourself out there. You get to connect with others through your
Yeah.
words. I mean, it's just so special. And I think actually anybody can do it, but it just takes a ton of discipline.
Yeah.
And it's the discipline I think that is hard. Um,
I love it though.
so
And it's
yeah,
so
it,
worthwhile at the end, it's
it
like,
is.
I love the fact, and I know that
Mm.
you didn't have a title, but I'm curious if there was ever a working title that because I know Wayne Dyer always said, pick a
Mm.
title, pick a cover, and then pretend as if it already exists in your world, right? As if it only just
Yeah.
needs you to bring it to birth, right? Like having a baby, 9 months, well, except this took for me 10 years. I'm sure it took a while for you. But
Yeah, more than 9
God
months.
help me, if I were pregnant for 10 years, that would not have happened. Feel like no, no. But like I'm just curious, what was the working title that you may have had as you were,
The work
what was it?
Yeah, the working title for a long time was uh, Strong and Soft,
Strong and
which
soft.
was, yeah, it wasn't that great.
No, but it sounded like it just
And
needed a twist on the words, because that's exactly like this. The water is soft, but it's so strong at the same time. Amazing.
well, that's why when I read that quote and he said, in this way, what is soft is strong, I went, and it just
Love it.
spoke to me.
I love it.
It spoke, and in fact, it was a friend of mine who's actually a marketing guy, and I'm like, I gotta get a title. Like, I need a title. And I was at the 11th hour,
Oh, I love it.
and he said, let me think about it. And we woke up the next day. He goes, look, I don't know why, but I just started thinking about Lao Tzu, and
Oh, that's so
I
cool.
went to my Tao Te Ching, and there it was. It's really weird how it came about.
I
So
think, like we were saying, is that's kind of like the dance, right? When it just you allow, like,
yes,
and you're like, oh, but you got to pay attention, or it just goes by and you
yes,
forget, and you're like, no, I don't want to lose that. Oh my God. And
yes,
Suzanne's saying,
yeah,
strong like water really intrigues. She had to change her title. It's scary. But yeah,
it is.
but it also is perfect, because this is perfectly what was necessary for this beautiful book. And who knows what the next one is going to look like as well. I want you to, I'm going to put my cover up here too, so we'll be side by side.
Oh, look at that.
They're beautiful. We have butterflies and we have beautiful water here. I want you to let everyone know how to connect with you, Laila, so that if they want to reach out to you, perhaps, get some more insights that you have, leadership advice, who knows? I don't know if that's what you're welcoming, but certainly with
Yeah.
regard to anything that you're offering. So please tell us where they can contact you.
I think the easiest place is my website, which is lailatarraf.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook.
So
So,
Laila is LailaTarraf.com. So I'm going to spell it out for the
correct.
podcast world. And definitely get in touch with her. Please get her book and write a great review. It's so wonderful. You're going to love it. Her story is amazing. Her background is amazing. Her life is amazing. And she's sharing it with all of us. And I can't even imagine what the rest of her story, this next adventure, is going to look like. So we send you off into the world with lots of love, for sure. And a lot of, all the hope that we have for the beauty of your life unfolding on this journey that we all create together, connected by who knows what, who knows when our paths are going to cross again. So thank you again, Laila, for this interview
Oh,
tonight. It was wonderful. You are wonderful. I am so gracious, or so gracious. I'm so gracious. I'm so grateful.
you are so gracious.
I'm gracious. You are so gracious. I am so grateful. Yes, Suzanne. She Writes Press covers are killer. And thank you all for joining us tonight. I really want everyone to remember the deliberate creators of their lives, dream big, and let's all together raise the positive vibrations on this planet so we can all live out our bliss together. Be bold, be awakeners. Don't forget your hope. There's always possibility. What is it? Hold on, possibilities exist. I always like that acronym for hope. You know, it's a new year, 2022. We all would love to connect with you. So reach out to Laila at LailaTarraf.com, MegNocero.com, and we'll see you into the month of love in February. Thank you again, Laila. Thank you again, everybody. Have a
Thank
wonderful,
you.
wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.